What options does Israel face in the light of ex-Prime Minister EHUD Barak's recent prediction about a potential retaliatory strike on Iran and a particularly symbolic strike on its nuclear site? It's essential to first acknowledge the complexity of the situation. Barak's assessment revolves around Israel's response to both Iranian missile attacks and Iran's nearing completion of a nuclear weapon. The former Israeli Prime Minister is blunt in his assertion that it's too late for any efficacious strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, either on the Fordo enrichment facility in the Salt Desert or the Natanz complex in central Iran, which is buried so deep that the most advanced bunker-busting bombs would probably fail, so any attack would not succeed in yielding a long-term benefit to Israel and to world peace. A nuclear blast would be to poke the peacock, as opposed to the bear. In his view, Ehud Barak's believes that Iran is now a nuclear threshold state, probably with up to 10 missiles in place by April, making any Israeli strike incapable of delaying or eliminating Iran's program in any meaningful way. Now, Barak's strategy shifts focus from the nuclear tests as targets, the nuclear sites as targets, to Iran's oil infrastructure, a significant and critical asset for the Iranian economy. And a large-scale airstrike on Iran's oil facilities would not only cripple a vital source of revenue, but would also send a clear message regarding Israel's ability to reach Iran's key assets beyond purely military objectives. Such a strike, as Barak predicts, may not be a one-off operation, but a series of repeated attacks that pressurized Tehran economically while simultaneously responding to the missile strikes. And the risks of this approach are manifold. Hitting Iran's oil infrastructure could provoke a wider regional conflict, especially if Iran retaliates through its proxies, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and other forces in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Barak himself concedes that the window for significantly setting back Iran's nuclear program has closed, and a nuclear-related strike, if it happens, would be more symbolic than strategic. A key challenge Israel faces in any military response is balancing domestic and international reaction. Domestically, Netanyahu's government may feel compelled to act decisively to show resolve and, if necessary, pull away from the apron strings of Granny Biden, given the psychological impact of missile strikes on Israel's densely populated cities. Internationally, while the Biden administration has voiced opposition to attacks on nuclear sites in Iran, there have been discussions about Israel targeting the oil sector, which could suggest tacit US acceptance, if not outright support. Of course, today, Biden is suggesting that Netanyahu's intransigence may simply be to indicate a show of support for Trump and the Republicans rather than the Democrats. And Biden this morning appeared in a press conference saying, we have done more to support Israel than any other administration in US history. The broader strategic calculus also includes the day after scenario that Barak alluded to, one where the conflict potentially spirals into an extended regional war. And with Hezbollah already under heavy bombardment and the possibility of further strikes on Lebanese territory, including critical border crossings, Israel must weigh the potential for escalation into a multi-front war. Thus, Israel's options are stark and fraught with risk, and it has few friends. A symbolic nuclear strike that may bolster Iran's narrative of resilience, or a devastating attack on its oil infrastructure, which could destabilize the region economically and militarily. Which to choose? The likelihood, as Barak suggests, is that Israel will pursue both options simultaneously, but without the expectation that either will drastically change Iran's nuclear trajectory. Instead, these actions would serve as a reaffirmation of Israel's defensive posture, demonstrating its capacity to retaliate and target Iran's vital resources. The problem really is that none of this needed to happen. Israel had a right, or has a right, to self-defense, but its inability to know the limits of its power, the moral, the ethical limits of its actions, make Israel directly responsible for the escalation of violence and the terror in the region. But has it been enabled by the US and by the UK? Absolutely. What do we do next? That's a much more complex question, because Iran's predatory activities cannot be tolerated either. And Iran's underhand support of Hamas and Hezbollah again needs to be questioned.